Free agency starts next month for the NFL, so we're expected to see some cap casualties along the way as teams try to clear money to get under the cap. And we're going to go over potential cap casualties today in this video. So what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Baroshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourse. We're going to be getting into it today. We're going to start going over the AFC, and then we'll get into the NFC. And of course, we're going to start with my favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. Fins up, baby. Fins up. So we got the Miami Dolphins here. They're currently $16 million over the cap. We got their free agents over here on this side as we see guys like Eric Fisher. Melvin Ingram's kind of a big one. Gesicki's expected to walk regardless. But, well, with them being over 16, they got to make some... They gotta make some moves. They gotta restructure some contracts, and that's gonna be a thing. A lot of teams are gonna try to find which contracts can they restructure. But if we're looking at potential cuts for the squad, I think the first one that comes to mind is Durham Smythe at the tight end position. They can clear $3.5 million by cutting him with minimal dead money. So go ahead, do that. Gets them basically at $13 million. This is the big one. I don't know if they're going to restructure or they make a move to trade, but Byron Jones is the name that comes to mind. Problem is it only clears up $3.5 million and it's almost $15 million in dead cap. Even if you go to a trade, that number remains the same. Of course, they could restructure all that kind of stuff and to make him more tradable, but let's see what a post June 1st cut looks like, as it's only about $5 million in dead cap, and it clears $13.5 million, which would put them under. So I think he's a name expected to probably end up in free agency, I would say, for the Dolphins. But those were really the only two guys that really came to mind for me. On to the Buffalo Bills as we give it time to change course over here. As the Bills were kind of a tough one, I got one easy route that they can go. Let's scroll down a bit here. As you can see, they're almost 17 million over the cap, and the first easy one I think is Nyheim Hines, as no dead money. It's almost 5 million if they cut him, and I feel like that's probably the right call. I don't think he's a guy you need to bring back. Keep in mind also Devin Singletary is a free agent, so they could look to probably in the draft to try to add some more running backs to that core there. The next name, this one I'm not so sure about. I mean, it frees up some money, but I mean, Mitch Morris was the starting center last year. Frees up $5 million, but it's $6 million dead cap. That's a post, or if it's a post June 1st, it's $8 million, so it's a bit better. I mean, it still results with them being over the cap. I'm sure they're going to make some deals here, but like looking at the current numbers, there weren't a lot of names that stood out to me as like easy calls. Like, I mean, you got a couple of receivers here, Isaiah McKenzie, Gabriel Davis. Those are two guys that could decide maybe to move on from. I feel like Khalil Shakir's kind of taken McKenzie's role, so you could go with that one there. And I mean, there's just not a lot of options, so they're probably gonna have to restructure some things. On to the New England Patriots, and this is a team that actually has a good they got a good amount of cap space, $34 million. But there's some moves that actually that I think that they can make that could really like bump that number up. First one, I think, cut in Hunter Henry. I mean, they get $10.5 million in cap savings there. So it's like now we're looking at $44 million. You can make a case for Trent Brown, but you already got Isaiah Wynn as a free agent, Marcus Cannon. So it's like you're already looking pretty thin at the tackle position. He's at least a reliable body when healthy on the field. There have been talks about Devin McCourty retiring, but that doesn't really take that into account. There isn't like a retire tab here, so I don't know how that would look financially for the Patriots. How about this one though? There's a couple of receivers. There's Kevin Bourne here, which you could save $5.5 million, and then Devontae Parker, which is a no, like you don't get dead money as a result, and it's $6 million. So I think one of these guys go, and if I really had to pick one, I mean, Kevin Bourne's more of a sub-package guy, but they also have Jacoby Myers as a free agent, so maybe they lean Parker there. But the other name that I saw here that was pretty, for me, it's pretty obvious, but I know the Patriots kind of like him, Jalen Mills. He's not been good for them. He really hasn't. They almost saved $500 million. Wow, that'd be a lot. $5 million by cutting him. So I think he's a likely cut. So let's say we keep Kendrick Bourne here. Maybe they look for a receiver in free agency. Maybe if they bring back Jacoby Myers, you could honestly probably reverse this, but for the sake of this, we'll actually go ahead with this. But they can look one via the draft on day 2, day 3. They have Tyquan Thornton last year, who saw a little bit of time here and there, but I think the Patriots are in a good spot. Looking at like potential other names, I don't really think there's a big one that really sticks out. I think that a lot of the guys here seem fine, and they're just kind of minimal cuts. You have the cap space, so why not? On to the New York Jets. The football Jets. As you can see, they're just a little over the cap, so it's like, okay, they don't need to make a bunch of cuts here, but I think an obvious one here is Carl Lawson, as he saves $15.5 million. Injuries have kind of been the Achilles heel of his career there, but I think it's just an obvious one. I mean, you could have fully expect that the Jets, if they want to, they could. We know Joe Douglas loves the trenches. They could go after defensive prospects in the draft, but we've seen Bryce Young. They got John Franklin Myers, right? John Franklin Myers, who's kind of this outside inside versatile piece. Bryce Huff has kind of come to his own. They have Jermaine Johnson, so it's like this is just a guy that's just taking up a lot of room there. If they want to make another cut, that could happen. Maybe Corey Davis saves them $10.5 million, and you could be like, oh, they need more weapons, but it's like Corey Davis was like fine down the stretch, but I don't think it warrants how much they're paying him. So just like that, they're at $25.5 million, and that's actually pretty good, good amount of cap room, especially if they're looking to bring on Aaron Rodgers. They're probably gonna have to make some other significant cuts here, or at least rework some of these contracts. Like really, maybe Ashton Davis, but I mean this is him on his rookie deal, ain't it? He hasn't been all that great, unfortunately. He was a guy I kind of liked coming into the draft. So, like, I don't know. They could probably rework, like, restructure Mosley here, and that'll get them a good amount. I'm not gonna. You know what? Screw it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that. But as you can see, I mean, just from like those two cuts, they're close. They're at $25 million. So I think those are probably the two likely cut candidates from the Jets. Ravens, they're gonna have $25 million in free agency. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. There's not a lot of great cut options for the Ravens, and I don't think they really need to make any. They just or Calais Campbell decided he's going to return for his 16th season, and he's still pretty productive in the role that they want him. They want for him there. So there's just not a lot of good candidates here, like Gus Edwards. You're already thin. This would make J.K. Dobbins the only running back on the roster. So it's like there's just not a lot of great options for the Ravens there. On to the Bengals, and actually there's two big ones I want to make. They got a lot of money, but they're gonna have to start clearing some if they want to extend some of their premier players like Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. I honestly think they find a way to bring T. Higgins back, but the first one I'm gonna say is Joe Mixon. Like, he's really not been that productive. Like, I think you could find a running back in this class on day 2 or day 3 and get similar production from that player. I mean, he saved $7 million in terms of cap, so I think it's totally worth it. I think the other guy, and some of y'all might think this is a bit crazy because they were already thin along the offensive line. It's La'el Collins, who was coming off an injury when he signed the contract with the Bengals. Didn't play that well, and then I think it was November he had the ACL injury. If they can find a way just to get out of his contract, save $6 million, and suddenly you're close to $50 million there. So you could then work some of those bigger contracts. I think you keep a guy like I mean, you could make a case for Tyler Boyd, but I think they really like Tyler Boyd. They've been trying to find that other guy that could come up and emerge as a slot player, but Tyler Boyd's just really good for them. I don't expect them to move on from him. And then the Browns are kind of in a predicament as well, as they don't have. I think they're actually have like yeah, they're $13 million over the cap. I was assuming they were as such, but there's not a lot of great contracts to cut here. There really isn't. They're gonna have to restructure some things here because it's not pretty. It doesn't get pretty in 2024. They're gonna have to restructure some of the guys here. They really are, or else they're. I mean, they've already made a ton of deals on trying to like extend talent for the future. So props to that. But they're gonna have to find a means to like cut down to get under that number here. So I'm assuming they're just gonna restructure some contracts. So like I couldn't find a good cut candidate or a cap casualty for the Browns. On to the Steelers here, and I have 2 big names here because they are just barely under the cap. But we could take a look at maybe a guy like Okafor, who gets you $7 million, but I don't think they'll do that. I think William Jackson's kind of the obvious one here. They signed him, but because I think it was a back injury, he ended up going straight to IR. So, like, that's a big figure. So, yeah, get rid of that. I think, you get rid of Mitch Trubisky. You already know who your quarterback of the future is. So, that saves $8 million. So, you're already looking good at $20 million here. And then you can make a case for one of these corners. Like, both these guys are kind of like just corner, like, they're like mid to low cornerback 2s in the NFL. So, and I mean, they just signed him last year. So maybe with Cameron Sutton being a free agent, maybe they end up keeping one of those guys or both of those guys. Martravius Adams, I mean, shoot. I mean, it's $2.5 million. They'll take it. They will take it. But outside of that, like, there's not a lot of great names. I think really Mitch Trubisky, William Jackson, those are the big names there. Let's move on to the Houston Texans, who actually got a few names I got in mind here that I don't think will be a part of the new regime under DeMeco Ryans, as they got good cap space at $37.5 million. But you know what? Just like Rita Repulsa used to say, make my cap space grow. It's not what she said. It's make my monster grow, but it is what it is. So we talk about Brandon Cooks being a potential trade candidate. It's actually works out a bit better if he does get traded. So let's just go ahead and submit that as is. Does result in a lot of money, dead money, but it kind of is what it is. But I think it's Christian Kirksey is kind of a easy one here. He frees up $5 million. I think looking here, I don't mind them keeping Can. He's like a fine depth guy. It's Eric Murray. He just kind of lost. Like, they got a lot of guys that kind of fill that role in, like Desmond Keene, Jalen Pitre, and such. Actually, one they have as a free agent, right? Yeah. Mr. T. Thomas here. I'm not going to butcher that first name. What is it? Taveri? But I think freeing up $4 million. Eric Murray was a bad contract anyway. And then Justin Britt here frees up $3 million. I think those are the three obvious ones. And then including the trade, let's go ahead and undo the trade real quick. They're close to $50 million. You do the trade, you're at $60 million. That's a ton of cap space to work with. And then look at this in 2024. It's just huge. D'Amico Ryans, man, this is legit. Like, they should be able. You bring back Laramie Tunsil. He was one of, if not the best tackle in football last year. You bring him back. But it, legitimately, this is a team. Once they get their quarterback, things are looking bright for the Texans. And then we move over to the Colts. And there's a couple of options I'm going to kind of talk through. You let me know if you don't like it. They're $12 million. If you didn't know, this already takes into account the portion for rookie contracts. You can cut Matt Ryan. I don't think that's going to be the case. I guess it could be, but I don't think so. Maybe DeForest Buckner, he's getting close to that 30. He's owed close to $20 million. That frees up a lot of cap, but he's been a great player for him. I don't see that. If you truly think this is a rebuild, maybe like Stephon Gilmore and not necessarily just a quick turnaround, you can make a case. But Stephon Gilmore was legitimately really good for him. If you think this is a legit rebuild, then Kenny Moore makes sense. That's $8 million. Stephon Gilmore is $10 million basically. But I think probably Grover Stewart, though when I did this video last year, he was also listed as a cap casualty. And he ended up staying with the roster. He's just a really good hand. Really good kind of like zero tech nose tackle type of guy. Good run stuffer on the squad. He's the only one that I could think of. I think they're going to look at this more as a turnaround than an actual rebuild. They're just going to go ahead and get their quarterback. If that's the case, then probably Matt Ryan. But if they look at it as a rebuild, I could see them shedding a lot of these contracts that they don't think they'll be moving forward with in the future. You could also make a case for Ryan Kelly here, Stephon Gilmore, Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, and then suddenly look, you're up to $85 million with those moves. Your roster's significantly worse, but if you're looking at it from a rebuild perspective, then it's okay. Of course, you're gonna look at a guy like Shaq Leonard, who you're okay, we want to move forward with him. Brandon Smith, Quentin Nelson, and then you got guys here that are still on their rookie deals. But ultimately, I guess Matt Ryan might be the guy, but I don't know. Let's go ahead and move to the Jags. The Jags got a few. They're actually 23 over the cap, so they have to make moves or restructure contracts. So looking at Shaquille Griffin, that's the easy one. Ended up getting hurt, eventually benched. He's likely out of here, so now you're at $9.5 million, a lot closer to that number. So what other moves can they make? I would make a case for Rashawn Jenkins. I know he plays a lot of snaps for the Jags. They really like him there. I think he's a really mid player. I would make the cut there. Roy Robertson Harris, I didn't necessarily love the sign-in, but frees up $7.5 million, and suddenly, bam, you're under the cap. I think Jamal Agnew, really just a return guy, make that cut, and bam, suddenly you're at $9 million with those cuts. You could even make a case, you know what, they want to keep Rashawn Jenkins, and bam, it's $3 million. You just cut Shaquille Griffin, Roy Robertson Harris, and Jamal Agnew. Shantley, I think, is a good reserve. I wouldn't want to move on from him. So I think those were kind of the obvious ones there. Let's go to the Tennessee tight ends, who there's actually quite a few names. They're currently $21 million over the cap. But there's a lot of easy cuts that they can make here. First one's Bud Dupree. They're not going to be able to trade that contract. Obviously, a post June 1st cut looks better, but for the sake of this video, we're trying to do this in lieu of free agency. So let's go ahead and get that $9 million back. I think the obvious one here, and I think the Titans have already let Taylor Lewan know he will be cut, so that's close to $15 million. Now, bam, we're in the positive here, but you don't stop there. Robert Woods. That's also an easy cut. Now we're at $15 million just with those three players. Taylor Lewan, Robert Woods, and Bud Dupree. Players who honestly didn't play a vital role last year. If you're looking for other names, I don't think there's really any that like jump to mind. Yeah, there really isn't. So that's how I see it. You can make it Ryan Tannehill. Maybe we could trade Ryan Tannehill. Actually, it's the same. What about post? Ooh, that's a lot of money. But that's post June 1st. By then, free agency is basically good as gone. You're basically in like the 5th cycle of free agency. On to the Denver Broncos, who they have $9 million. They're going to have money moving forward. It's not necessarily like as bad of a spot as people kind of like talked about. But it sounds like they might they might try to trade Garrett Bowles, which means they're going to be in the market for some tackles. They really are. Let's not submit this one just yet. Let's actually go through potential cuts. Graham Glasgow is actually a really good player for them. But then again, I also wouldn't be moving on from Bowles. I think Ronald Darby, we saw, who was the cat's name? Oh, Damari Mathis, right? He would be up here. Where's he at? Damari Mathis. He stepped in and he played actually exceptionally well. So getting rid of Ronald Darby frees up $9.5 million. And then, like, if you feel like you want more, like, I think the more obvious one here is Chase Edmonds, excuse me. Frees up $6 million. So, bam, you're working with $25 million now in free agency, which is actually a really good number. So don't move on from Garrett Bowles. I don't know why you would, but if that happens, that's kind of what that number probably figures to look like. They do have to re-sign some of their in-home talent pretty soon. Guys like Jerry Jeudy if they want and such. So we'll see. But I think Chase Edmonds is the obvious one, and Ron Darby could be a possible one. All right, on to the Kansas City Chiefs, and really, be straight with y'all. There's only one cut I really love for the Kansas City Chiefs, as they're $3.5 million over, and it's freaking Frank Clark, $21 million. Bam, suddenly you're at $17 million. Frank Clark makes all the sense in the world. We can look at others potentially. I think MVS, no, he's sticking around. L'Jarius Sneed sticking around. People might talk about him as a trade candidate, but I don't know. I'm quite unsure, because they do have to decide to re-sign some guys fairly soon. Guys like L'Jarius Sneed, Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, and the like. But yeah, no, honestly, that's the Frank Clark's is the best name there. He's too streaky. He's too hot and cold. Like, does really nothing for most of the season, and then he gets hot during like the last, like during the playoffs, and it's like, oh, that's why we signed him. He ain't worth it. On to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, when looking at the Raiders, I didn't think, like, they got $48 million in cap, so it's like, I don't think they don't really need to cut anybody. But like, if I was really gonna give a name, it would probably be Andre James. If they move Dylan Parham to center, it probably is Andre James. That's the one name that actually made sense, I thought. Brandon Bolden, but freaking Josh McDaniels loves Brandon Bolden. Let's get real. And there's really no other like big big deals. So Andre James might be the guy if they decide to part ways with anybody. And then we got the Chargers. And for the Chargers, there's one obvious one. They're currently $20.5 million or 20.5 million over the cap. There we go. So how are they getting under there? Well, let's go ahead with the obvious one. And Matt Filer frees up 6.5. But how are you gonna get there? How are you gonna get there unless you restructure deals? You're gonna have to start thinking about re-signing Justin Herbert. Apparently that window that little window you thought you had didn't all quite work out. So Michael Davis has played really well for them. I wouldn't move on from him. Let's see here. Keenan Allen's kind of the guy. Keenan Allen's kind of the guy to get you under that number. And maybe you make a case for Khalil Mack because he's an aging star. Still plays fairly solid, but not to pay him $27 million. And then suddenly, bam, you're at $19 million. But those are big names, but they're aging. I don't really think there's future plans for those guys. They were Keenan Allen, again, a guy that's often hurt. Sucks. He's had a good career there with the Chargers, but to get them under that cap, that number makes sense. And then Khalil Mack, he was brought on to kind of be the guy to help them get over the edge, and that's really not going to be the case. So is there really a future for him there? So a lot of things to think about there. Let's go ahead and just start with the NFC finally, since we're 25 minutes into this video already. All right, so Cowboys, $7 million over the cap. I don't know if they can restructure if they're going to restructure Ezekiel Elliott's deal. There's kind of mixed signals there when it comes to that, but Tyron Smith kind of feels like the obvious name first and foremost, because it looks like Terrence Steele and Tyler Smith are your tackles of the future. So Tyron Smith no longer needs to worry about the tackles there, I guess. But now you're at $2.5 million. The other obvious cut is Jordan Lewis here, who frees up $4.7 million, and basically, oh my gosh, who was the corner for Fresno State that basically took over in the slot? Oh man, his name's not coming to mind right now. Oh, there it is, Deron Bland. Okay, so he basically took over. So his presence is no longer required. Let's be honest, Neville Gallimore has really done a hot lot of nothing. If you're just looking to cut ties on guys that really haven't produced on rookie contracts for you. But outside of that, man, it's really hard to maneuver. Unless they restructure Zeke's deal, it's really, really hard to really do anything with those with their cap number. I feel like $10 billion is about as good as it gets. But I mean, shoot, aren't they probably gonna hit? Where are you at? Where's Tony Pollard at? Because it sounds like they hit Tony Pollard. Terrence Steele is a restricted free agent. Okay. So he's probably going to get a first-round tender, if I'm going to be honest. Tony Pollard, there's rumor he gets the franchise tag. And then just like that, we're at 4.5 over the cap again. So, they got to restructure something. And it's that Zeke contract. It really is. All right, so we got the New York Football Giants here. The G-men, they got 47, close to 47 million in cap, so they don't really have to do a lot. And unfortunately, when it comes to Kenny Golladay, do you really want to eat 14.5 million in dead cap just to free up 6.7 million? I think there's more of a likelihood he's because I don't think the trade number changes a little bit, but who's trading for Kenny Golladay? Let's be honest. He's just a better post June 1st cut at this point. He really is. The other name I think to look at as a potential trade option, let's see what his number looks like. It doesn't change if you trade him or cut him. Like Leonard Williams. You're paying him a lot. Look at what his cap number is this year. $32 million. I don't think you're going to be able to trade that. So another guy who could be a post June 1st cut, or you just stick with him on the team. Like he's a very mid player. You're paying him too much. Frees up $18 million. So it's like those are the two big contracts. I mean, if we really want to look at other potential guys, I really don't see any. Shane Lemieux, he's terrible. I felt more spiteful than anything else. But Daniel Jones is he ain't restricted? Pause. Oh, I guess you could. No, it's a franchise or a transition tender. Ooh, I mean they're gonna extend him in some shape or form. I feel like he's gonna get $32 million. Saquon Barkley, I feel like's back with the squad. Probably at an $8 million because it says he doesn't want to like reset the running back market. So maybe they have something where that's a bit more team friendly early in the contracts. So let's undo this. And suddenly just those two names, you're at $8 million. So yeah, man. It's just those two, like Leonard Williams and Kenny Golladay are really bad contracts at the end of the day. All right, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. I don't know the rest of their little mantra there, but they have close to $10 million in cap space. Javon Hargrave is actually working on the rest of his contract's void. So he's going to be a free agent. As you look here, yeah, the rest of these years are voided out. Essentially, it was just actually a 3-year deal, not a 6. So he's a free agent. I think Brandon Graham, technically, his void years don't start till after the 2023 season. But look in here, there's not a lot of good cut options. I'm going to be straightforward with you. There really isn't. They're kind of in deep on a lot of these contracts. Jalen Hurts, we could save $4 million. I mean, Fletcher Cox, are his deals void too? No, they're voided after the 2023 season, but his cap number's not bad to keep him around. Like, yeah, there's just not a lot of great, like, they're probably going to have to restructure some stuff. But I don't know how this plays into, like, the void years. Like, will they be recouping some cap space that way? Like, void contracts with void years are, for my little brain, hard to wrap my head around. All right, so we got the Commanders. They have a lot of obvious cuts, actually, I think. Excuse me. So they got $8.3 million, so not a ton. I think there's a good chance that they actually franchise tag Daron Payne, hoping to get maybe a more long-term deal. So let's say they do that. Now they're close to $10 million under the cap, but fun fact, Carson Wentz got you covered. $26 million. Look at that, just like that. We're at $16 million. Isn't that a beautiful thing? I think another potential cut is actually Curtis Samuel. I know it's like $7 million dead money, but like that's close to $6 million we could save there. I know people have been talking about Chase Royer. I don't know how to properly pronounce his name. I think it's French or something, but kind of is what it is. At least I know I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Let's see. Even like it's probably better. I know he's been banged up. Like when on the field, he's really good, but I know he's been banged up. Like it's a better post June 1st cut. It just sucks because you don't want to do that to those guys. You want them to be able to get there in the thick of things of free agency. You don't want to make them a late cut after teams have kind of already filled their needs, drafted. Like it's just kind of a crummy thing to do, but Fortunately, that's the business, but let's just cut him as is. Now you're looking at $26.5 million, and that's after already bringing Deron Payne back. So looking good there. I imagine Taylor Heineke, you could probably bring him back for a sensible number. I'm fairly confident he really loves playing there. Logan Thomas is other name that makes sense. Another guy that's kind of been banged up. Frees up $5 million if you cut him. Obviously, the most obvious move here, though, is Carson Wentz. Frees up $26 million. So let's go ahead and move on to the Chicago Bears. And they have $94 million in cap space. Whole lot of cap space. I don't know what they're going to use it on. So it's not. They're just in this instance where they don't need to cut people. They don't need to cut guys. They really don't. I mean, if we're gonna look like contracts, like even Justin Jones, he's a serviceable hand when you're in the middle of a rebuild. So that's not necessary. I mean, you can cut your kicker, I guess. I know Muhammad is a favorite of Matt Eberflus, so I don't think that is a guy that they're gonna move on for. Obviously, they got to start re-signing some of their other guys. Like Cole Kmet showed to have a little chemistry with Justin Fields. Jalen Johnson's a guy you definitely want to bring back. Travis Gibson. But yeah, there's just not a lot of good, it's not a lot of good, you don't have to cut anybody with how much cap space you have. There's no answer there in terms of who to be a cap casualty for the Bears. The Lions, however, they do have I think a fairly obvious one when we get over there. Because they're currently $14 million over the cap. So it's like, okay, they don't necessarily have to make moves there. It's a young ascended team, but Michael Brockers is such an obvious one. $10 million frees up. Suddenly you're at $24 million, feeling really good. Romeo Okwara does result in $7 million in dead cap. And I mean, maybe he ends up being a post June 1st after you have free agency, after you have the draft. Maybe you feel better about the young talent you have on the defensive line that you want to part ways with him. People talk about Big Daddy V here potentially being cut, a guy that's kind of been hurt too. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's actually bring back Romeo Okwara since he's viewed as a post June 1st. At least that's what I think. And I mean, there's not a lot of contracts after that you want to cut, but I mean, just with those two moves, you're at $30 million. That's a lot of cap space. So feeling good about that if you're the Lions going into free agency. And we have the Packers. So I had initially listed here as my cap casualty Aaron Jones, but he has since then restructured his contract. I'm recording this on Friday before my stream, but he restructured his contract, so it's not likely he ends up on the chopping block there, but still, okay, let's look at what happens with the trade with Aaron Rodgers. $40 million in dead cap. You gotta hope that whatever team that is in a Rodgers trade is willing to take some of that, because look at that. It just hurts you. It's just too much. It ain't gonna result in anything good. So you gotta hope that the team that's taking Rodgers will be willing to take on some of that cap this season. But honestly, Aaron Jones was kind of I thought the best idea, but again, they just restructured the deal. So now he is no longer a good cap casualty. So they restructured that deal. I'm looking at others. Adrian Amos. So is it a void year? Because I'm pretty sure he's a free agent. Yeah, look at all these void years. Ridiculous. So yeah, he is a free agent. Don't know how that plays into the cap. Tried looking it up and I was just like, yeah, my understanding of financially how the NFL works is a big mystery. Packers might like Runyon. I think he's very low tier, so get rid of him. But yeah, they don't have a lot of good options, for being frank. What they do is, it's going to be a result of the Aaron Rodgers trade, how much money that other team will take on, or maybe if Aaron Rodgers is back with the squad, it's going to be resulted like it's going to be cuts. They're going to have to cut, or it's going to be restructuring some of those contracts. All right, we got the Minnesota Vikings, and I don't think this is like, all right, realistically, you could, like, Zadarius Smith was really good for them. I don't think they cut him. I know he's getting older, but he was a really good player. I don't think you're looking to go rebuild with Kirk Cousins. So, like, I think they retain him, but he saves them $12 million. I mean, they're currently 23 over the cap, so it's like, that's a significant number. Instead, I think it's going to be a guy like Eric Kendricks, saves them $9.5 million. That's kind of obvious. And then Jordan Hicks saves them $5 million. So brings them close to that, currently basically $9 million over the cap. So brings them close to that figure. It really does. Now the question is, what do you do from there? Because they got young guys there at linebacker they like, Brian Asamoah and such. So it's like, what do you do from there is the question. Because it's like, well, Zadarius Smith gets us there. But I don't think they want to do that. I don't think they really are going to want to do that. So what can we do? Like, CJ Ham's like an oldie, and like, he's a favorite of these guys. But, well, we got to make cuts somewhere, bud. What are we going to do? Let's see. I mean, it's got like Chris Reed. Like, it's probably going to be some of these minuscule cuts they make. I don't know. Maybe they could restructure somebody there. But Vikings not in the best of shape when it comes to currently where they're at in terms of their cap space going into free agency. The Falcons, quite frankly, don't need to cut anybody. They have $56.5 million going into free agency. We could look like, I'm even like, to hell, dude, keep Marcus Mariota. It's like, oh, you could save $12 million. To hell with that. He's a solid backup. Keep that guy. Like, Casey Hayward's a really good mentor. You're keeping that dude. Like, you have the cap space. You don't need to do anything. However, they do need to bring back Caleb McGarry. So let's go ahead. Let's go with the franchise money there. So it takes them down to $39 million. You're still working with a lot. And in terms of the free agents, they currently have, they don't have a lot of big free agents. They really don't. They don't. So it's like, you probably really only want to bring back Caleb McGarry, and you're still working with $39 million. That's a ton. There ain't no way they let him hit free agency. There ain't no way. I say this and he's going to end up hitting free agency. So it's like, yeah, no, I think they're sitting in good shape, man. And then Marcus Mariota, I think it's only a 2-year deal, so he'll be gone after that. You'll know if Desmond Ridder is your guy or not going into next draft, and then either you're drafting the next guy or Ridder's that guy for the future. So I think the Falcons are in pretty good shape for the future. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. I think they have a couple of obvious choices here, as they're currently close to $8 million over the cap. There we go. My first cut here would be Pat Elflein. He's a mid-reserve player. So now we're close. We're at $3.5 million. Who will be the next guy we have here? And I think it's Damian Wilson, excuse me. Here, and that gets you just over the cap. So what moves can you make to get you more cap space? Any heartbreaking moves here? Like, because, I mean, they want to bring back Bozeman. There's a chance. They want to bring in Derek Carr. Maybe they end up bringing back Sam Darnold if they can't bring back Carr. They're going to have to, like, we're going to see them extend Brian Burns. But what is the play here? That ain't it. I was thinking maybe Dante Jackson and his contract. I don't think there's really a super good move. Like, Haynes is a good depth guy. You're going to have to re-sign Jeremy Chin. Yeah, there's not a lot of good answers, but I think the obvious ones are Damian Wilson and Pat Elflein. All right, we have the New Orleans Saints. This video is basically going to be as long as a movie. We're going to push this sucker past 50 minutes soon. All right, so the Saints are in cap hell, and I have no idea what to do with them. So $55 million over the cap. We're going to look at the Bucks hereafter, and they're in a similar spot, but the thing is with them, there's a variable that kind of changes things. So what are they gonna do? Like, I know it's crazy. Cameron Jordan's literally is like the heart of the Saints defense. But it's like you look at his production this past year, the lack thereof. Like, this Saints team, you gotta look to a future rebuild here. So the only obvious answer I came up with was a Carl Granderson. Saves them $4 million. But look at that. That does a hot lot of nothing. This is going to result in restructuring contracts. I'm pretty sure Marcus Davenport. It's another guy working with these freaking void years, man. Another guy working with these void years. Jeez Louise. So the same is true with David Onyemata. So I can't really tell you how that affects the cap. There's a good chance Calvin Kamara is not going to be playing with this squad next year. That number post June 1st, let's say it happens, so it saves them basically $10 million, but I mean, there's not a lot of great options here. Andreas Pete. His void years don't come into effect till 2025. Oh man, Saints in their freaking void contracts. What's a post cut look like? Okay, that's not so bad. But still, you're doing that in lieu of the start of the season rather than the start of the off season. So, not a pretty situation the Saints are currently in. Buccaneers. This is a thing. I don't know how Tom Brady's retirement affects this number. The 50s, because they're currently $55 million down in cap, but I don't know how Tom Brady's number is going to affect that. I think maybe if this team thinks they're in a rebuild, potentially, we could maybe see like a guy they acquired last year, Shaq Mason. Could end up being a cut, saves him $5 million. He'll probably go ring chasing because he's still in a very good starter in the NFL. Still a very good starter in the NFL. So he could go ring chasing somewhere else and actually be a legitimate like upgrade over probably a large majority of the guards in the NFL for some of these Super Bowl contender teams. Wouldn't that be some crap if he ends up going to the Bills? That'd be wild. Bills got to make some moves, though. But, yeah, it's kind of hard to really pin any one guy for the Bucks. So, yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's just move to the next squad. The Arizona Cardinals, as we're now in the NFC West. And they're currently $14.5 million over the cap, but it does look like they're probably likely to trade. But that number doesn't look good, even a trade prior to June 1st. It only results in $8 million free cap, the 2020 $22 million in dead cap. That's such a big number. So if something happens, I mean, it would have to involve restructure. As you can see, they free up after June 1st, $19.5 million. So you kind of look for him to be a post, but they can restructure things and kind of make that happen. The other name here is Zach Ertz. As you see, $10 million in dead cap. So he could end up being a post June 1st cut. Saves them $6 million. Oh, Robbie Anderson's actually the obvious one here. So Robbie Anderson, very obvious, $12 million. He did a hot lot of nothing. And I mean, you gotta kind of assume that this team's probably in rebuild. Not even necessarily rebuild mode, but rebuild. But we have our franchise quarterback. Now we just got to build around him. So, you know, we'll see what happens with that. There's not a lot of obvious cuts for the Cardinals, except for Robbie Anderson. Zach Ertz, I have a good feeling he's going to be a post-June 1st cut. And then they'll kind of figure out something with D-Hop here. And then we're going to the Rams. The Rams, they are $14 million over the cap. And I was looking here. There's not a lot of great options, unfortunately. Even like a trade prior June 1st with Jalen Ramsey only frees up $5.6 million. Let's see what other things. I mean, this is good. They're gonna need to restructure some things. Let's see. I hate to say it. Maybe you cut Bobby Wagner, let him go ring chase somewhere else. But I don't think that's gonna be the case. Tyler Higbee, I've seen him as a name brought in up. I don't see that happening though. Coleman Shelton, he's been like he's a reserve at best that had to see playing time this year. You could get rid of him, but yeah, the Rams are gonna have to restructure some things. Their cap's kind of a mess. They're kind of fortunate Sean McVay decided to come back. All right, so the Niners, they are $8 million over the cap, and I'm not gonna lie, there's not a lot of great options here for the Niners. Like I didn't find one I really, really liked, but I mean, we could go ahead and look through this here, see if we could find any one name that we might kind of like here. So you can see there's like a lot of minimal contracts that that free up a hot lot of nothing. So yeah, there's just not a great option here. The Niners are probably a team that they're fine with where they're at. Even with some of the free agents they have going out, I'm pretty sure they're not too heartbroken. They feel like they've probably developed some solid guys on the roster that can kind of step up and fill in. So, yeah. Now, last but not least, we're going to take a look at the Seattle Seahawks. They have $31 million in cap space, so that's a good number. Let's see what we can do with it, though. I don't think there's I think probably Shelby Harris is kind of the obvious guy here. 32, up there in years. You can free up $9 million. I think he's the obvious name. You can make a case, Gabe Jackson. He's in his twilight years. So let's make that cut. Quentin Jefferson's a reliable hand to have. Very versatile. Let's see. Those are probably, I think those are the obvious guys if they make moves. And then you're at $46.5 million just with those two moves. So I think you're looking pretty. Unfortunately, you can't do nothing with sticking Jamal Adams' contract. Let's see what post cut. Not great. So, yeah. But, I mean, they're working with a lot of cap space anyway, so they don't need to make that move. Any free agents they might want to bring back? Poona Ford, maybe? Ryan Neal. Oh, man. He's a restricted free agent. Maybe you slap a second-round tender on him. Because he played really well, man. Second-round tender. I think someone could come bite. I'm just going to say that. So you throw a second-round tender on him, and shoot, someone comes biting. But even if they don't, then you bring back one of your best players on defense last year. Goodwin's a really good depth guy. They could probably bring him back low cost. Oh yeah, I forgot they got to do something with Geno, right? Let's just slap the franchise tag, and suddenly we got $10 million to work with. That's not great. All right, so Michael Jackson's was that eligible restricted free agent? Okay, let's just add it because they definitely want to bring him back. Bring back some of at least the half decent players you had there. Really no other guys that are catching my eye. So those were the big names they have to, I think, that they're gonna bring back. Puna Ford, they could probably work that in, but I mean that would result in maybe not. I don't know. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is a stupid long video, but I was covering every team. That's kind of what happens. But go ahead, do the YouTube thing as always. Until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.